Bangalore's water crisis is actually a groundwater crisis. The city's center receives water from the Kaveri and actually has not experienced as severe a cutback in supply. However, the fast growing suburbs, which are completely groundwater dependent, have seen declines in the water table and failure of bore wells. And a lot of the crisis that we hear about in the media is actually driven by this depletion of the peri-urban groundwater table. Hi, I'm Veena Srinivasan. I'm the Executive Director of Well Labs, that's Water, Environment, Land and Livelihoods, and we are a research and innovation center working on land and water sustainability. The question is, can the crisis be alleviated by restoring the city's lakes, as some have suggested? The answer is actually quite complicated for four reasons. First, a lot of the city lakes, the relationship between the city's lakes and groundwater is often not unidirectional. In parts of the city, the lakes feed groundwater, and in other parts of the city, it's actually the groundwater that feeds lakes. Specifically in the city center, where groundwater tables are very shallow because of constantly leaking Kaveri pipelines, it's often the groundwater that's feeding the lake and not the other way around. The second complication is the lakes are often sedimented with silt, and actually the rate of recharge from the lakes to the aquifers might actually be limited by this silt layer that forms over time. In fact, even lakes which get rejuvenated often get desilted within a year or two, and thus the rate of recharge from lakes to the aquifer declines over time. The third reason is that Bangalore is underlain by hard rock granitic aquifers, the kind that you might find in your kitchen countertop. These aquifers are actually quite impermeable, and the rate at which the water from the lakes might reach the aquifer is actually limited by a few fractures. And therefore, the water from the lake might not recharge aquifers as quickly as we might hope. The fourth and final reason is that the shallower aquifers and the deeper aquifers are not equally well connected in all parts of the city. In eastern Bangalore in particular, the aquifer is overlain by a thick saprolite layer, which is actually quite impermeable. And so often the lakes might recharge the shallow weathered zone, but the deeper aquifers from which most of the bore wells are actually pumping groundwater are not actually receiving the recharge. And therefore, depletion might occur in spite of recharge occurring in the shallow region. So overall, policies which to address Bangalore's water crisis and specifically Bangalore's groundwater crisis have to take cognizance of these complications and really be informed by the best state of the art studies. There are several studies which have looked at how Bangalore's lakes are linked to the groundwater table. Some of these look at water balance studies, which have looked at the water in the lakes and the fluxes in and out of the lakes, and particularly exchanges with groundwater. Others have looked at isotopic or tracer studies to look at the signatures, the geochemical signatures of the water in the lake and compare them to the water in bore wells to understand how much of the water in groundwaters actually come from lakes versus rainfall versus pipeline leakage. Now, the solutions to Bangalore's groundwater crisis, therefore, must acknowledge the limitations in these lake groundwater connectivity. And a couple of the solutions might involve actually looking at more distributed recharge systems. So looking at recharge from rooftops, recharge from green spaces within the city, even recharge from permeable parking lots. Another option might be to look at lakes more in terms of their surface water storage. This could be having either taking water directly out of lakes or locating a borewell right next to a lake so that it's essentially drawing water directly from the lake. But in either case, it's important for policymakers to kind of understand the science between lake groundwater interactions in Bangalore. Thank you.